Welcome to Below the Line, where we talk about working in Hollywood from the crew perspective. My name is Skid. I'm a former assistant director and your host.
Quiet on the set.
Today, we're talking about The First Lady, the Showtime 10-episode limited series that is airing its final episode today, June 19th. My guest is the makeup department head, Carol Rasheed. Carol, welcome to Below the Line.
Hi, thank you.
Warning for listeners, today's conversation may contain spoilers. We're going to avoid tonight's season finale, but everything else is fair game. Carol, start us out by introducing the show.
Okay, well, the show is called The First Lady, and it is based on three historical first ladies. So it goes through the Betty Ford years, it goes through the Eleanor Roosevelt years, and it also goes through the Michelle Obama years, which, of course, they were the wives of those presidents. So President Obama, President Roosevelt, and President Ford. So they were all the wives of those three presidents.
And you've got some pretty heavy talent playing those wives.
Yeah, we had, for the Betty Ford block, of course, Michelle Pfeiffer was there. And she, of course, had a personal makeup artist. Her name was Valerie O'Reilly, which came in to do Michelle. And then for the Eleanor Roosevelt portion, we had Julie Kendrick. She came in to actually do the makeup and the hair. She's from the UK. She was amazing. And then we had Sergio Lopez Rivera was Viola Davis's, which, of course, who's played Michelle Obama.
I want to dive a little deeper into the role of personals doing makeup on set. But first, the other interesting thing to me about this show is that all the episodes are directed by Susanna Bier, almost as if it's a really long movie.
Right. And it's so interesting you say that because it was kind of shot as a movie. Susanna Bier, she is one amazing director. And, she was definitely a hands-on director. She had her opinion about every single thing, every single look. And it was great because it really gave me, I guess after maybe about the second week, it took me about 2 weeks to really find out specifically what she wanted. It was like searching through the field, for the first 2 weeks because, sometimes, directors have visions in their head, but they don't exactly know how to get it out their head, for you to be able to understand it. And this was a case with her. I mean, she just basically kind of said, this is what I want, but it really took me a couple of weeks to really figure out the look of the show for her. I had, my own thing in my mind. I figured that I would try and do a look, myself and my team. Of course, you can't do a show this big by yourself, but my team and I, in the very beginning, we did tons and tons and tons of research. And the costume designer, Scene, she had done many shows with Susanna. I think she's been working with Susanna for probably over 20, 25 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So she had a very clear vision of what Susanna wanted from makeup and from hair. And she was very hands-on with us specifically. So I spent a lot of time in the costume department with the costume designer, trying to really figure out the first 2 weeks of that show, So, she was an integral part in terms of me helping to nail the look that Susanna felt most comfortable with.
Well, Carol, if you hadn't worked with Susanna before, how did you get involved in the project?
I actually got involved with the project from one of the producers that I had worked with. I had done another TV series for 4 years with another producer that was working for Showtime. She was one of the execs. She contacted me directly and asked me, would I be interested in the show? And of course, who would be interested in that show, with all those A-listers and to be able to tell a story of about 107 years, makeup artistry from that viewpoint, from the late 1800s all the way up to 2007. So it was definitely a challenge and an experience that I just wanted to be a part of.
Well, I want to get a sense of the challenge of what you faced logistically. I know you and I talked earlier, and you filmed the show in blocks. In other words, each period complete, even though the episodes of the show are interwoven. You're shooting what was first?
Well, here's the thing. When the show was actually shared with me in terms of how they were going to shoot, I was actually told that it would shoot in blocks. And this is one of the reasons why I accepted the show, right? I was told that we'll do block one and then we'll have 3 weeks off and then we'll be able to, prep and prepare for the next block. That never happened. I mean, we literally shot that show for 9 months straight through. Okay. Hindsight, I probably would never do that again, but dealing with the logistics of COVID and having to, thank God for my team, because I had a team that, would, do all the scheduling for COVID. We had to, structure our trailers a certain way to have them divided, to protect our talent and to protect ourselves, so that in itself, keeping enough staff, in rotation to be able to cover the vast amount of talent that we had over all 3 blocks of that show. We did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, principals. So it was quite an undertaking, but it's so interesting. That show prepared me for the show that I'm doing now, because it was hell for the first month, but after we really got the idea and collectively idea of what Susanna wanted to see on screen, working with my team, working with seeing the costume designer, and also working with Susanna, we figured it out. We were one of the only departments that kind of finished the show out. I don't know, many departments ended up leaving. It was crazy. However, we were able to stick it in there, figure out the look of the show, and it kind of carried over for each block. The look of the show was very stylized. Even though it was period, we did the 1800s. Like I said, I think we did 1889 or something like that, all the way up to 2007. But we were able to get a look for each block that was a simple thread that went through all 3 blocks of the show. So the makeup needed to look like it was something that they had done themselves. The director, Susanna, like I said, she was very specific. I mean, as she looked at every single person that was going to be on screen, she wanted to see them beforehand. We had to do makeup testing with all the actors that were coming in, even the day players that would come in for a day, the start, work, finish people. So she wanted to see the makeup on them, their hair, and some of them dressed in costumes before they would work. And I tell you, I learned something very valuable from that experience. It's an experience that I think I'd like to take on all my shows, because it saves so much time. It saves so much time when you're working with a director like that is a very visual director. So when people, showed up on set, they were looking like the looks that she had already approved. So that was something very new for me. I had never experienced that before, ever, with a director. It took more time, it took more staff, but ultimately I think it saved the production money because of the fact that we had these people come in, we were able to get their looks worked out. So something that probably would have taken us, an hour to do, we cut the time by half by doing it beforehand. So, and everybody was happy. Everybody knew what it was going to look like on the day.
Well, that is a lot of extra upfront logistics and complications. And maybe this is a good time to go back to what you mentioned earlier about actresses of this level. They bring their personal hair, makeup, often a costumer with them, people that travel with them from show to show. Talk to me about how that dynamic integrates with what you're setting up with the director and the overall look.
Well, that's a very good question. The personals, like, for example, Michelle Pfeiffer, her personal, Valley O'Reilly. Valley and I did all the breakdowns, and I kind of sent them to Valley to say, listen, this, what is happening? We have a younger version of Betty Ford, and so for me, I needed to know, have a picture of, what she was thinking for Michelle. Right. I wanted to make sure I got an actor with the same color eyes to play the younger version, with the same, structure of face. Of course, casting is, takes part in that and kind of choosing, the people. But one of my things that I had to do, say they got a person that structurally looked the same, but their eye color was different, or their teeth, how they smiled was different, so that was an opportunity for me to be able to work with the personal to say, okay, this is what we need to do for the younger person. So I worked in tandem with Valley O'Reilly, which was Michelle Pfeiffer's personal. Julie Kendrick was Gillian Anderson's personal. I worked with Julie. She sent me very close-up pictures of the eye color of Gillian. You know what I mean? She took pictures of her mouth and how she smiled. So all those things made a difference. So for the character that played the younger version for Jillian, we had to have teeth made for her, to get the same overbite, so it's things like that you have to do as a department head, and you got to be able to work closely with them. And of course, I was there to support them and what they needed as well, as personals. So, and the same thing with Michelle, with the Michelle block. I really didn't have a lot. We didn't go back and forth a lot with Sergio in regards to what Michelle Obama would need. She's more current. She wasn't really back in the day. She's very more current. And he kind of did a lot of that on his own. Like, I think he had to have some foam vacuums made of her brows to be able to duplicate that. Sergio did. So we did talk about the younger version, though, of Michelle, and she really looked stunningly like the young Michelle. So that wasn't a hard thing for makeup and hair for that particular character, the younger version. So absolutely, you work very closely with the personals. In this case, all the personals were fantastic.
And by this time, we're filming in 2021, right? You're from January to September.
From January to September. I had never in my life done a show that long. So, had I known it was going to be 9 months, I probably would have been like, well, you know what? Let me think about that. That's a quick way to get burned out. But, the beauty of it is that, again, I had such an amazing team. The production, the producers, everybody was so supportive. So for me, it made it a lot easier. Whatever I needed, I asked for. Production didn't hesitate to give it to me, to provide the essentials for me to be able to do that show so effectively.
Talk to me also about the challenges of the men. Specifically, I know there were some prosthetics that came in to get those guys into the look of the presidents.
O.T. Fagbenley, he played Barack Obama. And let me tell you, that man, he got that voice down. We had to add a mold to him, which we, would put that on every day and color it. But he was concerned about Obama's ears because that is something that, he's really well known about his big ears. So, of course, we went to Mike McCarty, which is a special effects person. He, did a sculpture and molded some big Obama ears specific to OT's ears. And so Mylene Melendez, who was on my team, she was responsible for applying those ears every day he worked. So we had to age him a little bit, put some age spots on him. They grade his hair up a little bit over in the hair department. And just to age him, OT really had a lot of input in regards to what he felt was needed for that character. And it's our job to help them create the character. So we did that. And I think that that went pretty well for OT. So for Franklin D. Roosevelt, which was played by Kiefer Sutherland, Kiefer Sutherland is kind of a thinner guy, but as we know, as Franklin D. Roosevelt got older, he had a gobble. I mean, he was very thick under his chin area, and Kiefer really didn't have that. So we had to create that. Again, Autonomous Effects, which is also Mike McCarthy, had to make that piece for us. So they made that piece for us, sent it over, and we had to apply on to Kiefer Sutherland. We had to age him. The wig person that did that block, Colleen Callahan, she did an incredible job with those wigs, with the hair. All that stuff really matters in terms of how the makeup is going to look. All of it has to go together, so that was quite a challenge trying to get him to look that part by adding the jowls and adding the neck piece. I think that really did help him get into looking the part.
Yeah, I thought both of their makeup jobs looked really natural through the whole thing. So, and really did invoke those characters along with the acting, of course. I think they were both
Yay!
really committed to it, but I thought it looked great.
Thank you. Thanks to my team. Actually, Laura, she ended up being Kiefer's personal for that block. Laura Dandridge actually applied the piece to Kiefer's neck, and she did a great job. This is the thing too. I think sometimes with us as people of color, we tend not to age the same way that other people may age. It's very hard to sometimes look at a Black person and tell really how old they really are. But it's the little subtleties that you do, like for example, maybe taking a little bit of the color out of their lips, and aging them slightly around the eyes, because that is really the natural progression of how a lot of people of color age. We don't go from 0 to 100. We kind of gradually age. You can look at somebody. I'm 60. I'm almost 60. Not to pat myself on the back, but the thing of it is that we just age differently. So I think that is the other thing too. I think when you have, persons of color and aging them, it's subtleties. So with OT, it was no different. You know what I mean? Barack, I guess in his later years, the thing that aged the most was his hair. His hair got really, really gray,
Right.
From the time he entered into office until the time he ended. And his face aged too, but it was subtle aging. Right. And so we kind of follow the same lines of aging with the OT character. Back in the older days, like during the, FDR's days, things were harder. Living was harder. It was just a harder way to live. There was not as much accessibility, even though they had money, but I think that back in the day, people tended to age a little bit different than they did in more current years. Only because you have more accessibility to skin creams and, things that you didn't have back in the 60s.
Well, talking about all the work you put into creating the look, on the other side of that, it's how that look shows up on camera. And I'd like to hear about the relationship you had with the director of photography, Amir McCree, on this project.
Oh my God, Amir was absolutely incredible. I mean, there were many days where I would go over to Amir and, and look at the monitor and in any comments that I had, if I had a situation where, I had an actor that really didn't rest that well, you know what I mean? And, we have makeup on them. Susanna still wants them to look natural. So there's only so much that you can put on them. Those would be days where I would say, listen, we may need a little bit of help. They're a little bit dark under their eyes. Amir was always open to that. I mean, I know with the Betty Ford block, Michelle Pfeiffer, in some of the scenes where she had to play the part of being a drunk. And she played that part, but lighting had a lot to do with how she looked during those scenes. Of course, Valley's handiwork also helped. I think as a makeup artist, as a professional, so important and so critical to be able to work with your DP and have a great relationship with them, because they can really make or break your work. And I think in the case of the First Ladies, I think everybody looked amazing. I really, think for the most part, almost everybody looked amazing in that project. You always will have one or two people where you say, oh, well, I wish I could have done this better. I wish this looked a little bit different, but sometimes, that's, the hand that's doing it. And sometimes it's lighting.
Well, it's interesting to select a DP for a project like this where you've got men and women at various ages, you've got people of color, and how all that light comes together. It takes a lot of experience, I think. And it sounds like Amir really brought that to this project, but I know that's not always the case.
Oh God, that's not always the case. And you know what, and as a makeup artist too, I think one of the things that you have to look at, if you have a really dark skinned African-American person or African person, or however you want to put it, and then you have a really light-skinned person or a white person, sometimes if they're in a scene together, as a makeup artist, very often, I'll add a little bit more color to the lighter person to give them a little bit more color so that it's not so hard for the DP to light that type of scenario. So it's learning how to do all of that stuff. And I think that, it just comes from working and experience. But when you have a good DP, they understand how to light one side and light the other side, differently if you have two people working, so again, that comes with experience. With an experienced DP, that also comes with an experienced makeup artist as well, in terms of trying to make that look blend together without one person getting completely washed out and the other person fading out because you can't see them. As an artist, it's our responsibility to understand that concept, to be able to look at the monitor and kind of quickly make that decision if you see something that is off. And then you have to go over and tell the DP, or as the makeup artist, you have to go in and try and make the adjustments. It's been many a times where I've had to go in and make the adjustment, because, and I think that makeup artists are so underrated, because the thing that we do is that we have to keep those actors happy. We have to keep the director happy. We have to keep the producers happy and still get everybody out looking good and on time. And many times, they want to give you 5 minutes to go in and do a touch up, and the DP or the lighting people can take 2 hours to light something. It's definitely, I think, an unfairness in that. I mean, I've spoken about that. I speak about that on the show that I'm on now. You know what I mean? That I think that everybody's position is important, so if you give the DP the time to do what they need to do, then respect what I do and my team does to give us the time to do what we need to do as well. So if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, allow us that time and not rush us out, and unfortunately some ADs, I mean, oh God, don't get me started on that.
I'm not going to try to defend all ADs at this part of the show. It looks to me that whatever team you had on the First Lady, though, they did give you the time, because this would be very easy to fall into caricature between prosthetics and makeup and but it doesn't. All these folks really look good over the years and the way it ages. Like, I'm very impressed, and so I'm assuming that you did have the support you needed on this show.
Absolutely. This is one of the best shows that I've worked on in terms of production support. It was incredible. Our producers, Pavelina, was, one of the producers on this show. She was amazing. There was nothing that I didn't go to her and say, listen, we need, this in order to make this happen. I never got any, pushback, and I think that goes along too with you as a department head kind of understanding what you need and being able to ask and convey to them why you need it, as opposed to just arbitrarily just going and asking for stuff. They knew that I didn't roll like that. If I went to them and said, listen, I need to do X, Y, and Z, they were like, okay, no problem, because I was going to be able to deliver the goods on what I've requested. Production wise, it was very supportive. And at the height of COVID, lucky for me, like I said, I can't say enough about my team, Chantel, Langston, Mylene Melendez. They were my hardcore team that was there with me from the beginning to the end. And they really made a difference. And I had on this show also a research person, a PA, her name was Mackenzie. And let me tell you, every day she was on the computer, researching, pulling stuff, making sure, so it's having logistically all those things together. It really did make a difference in terms of how our department flowed. And production could tell. I mean, we would get comments about how organized we were. But again, I attribute that to my team, because I certainly couldn't do it by myself.
Well, congratulations on this show, Carol. We're going to call it a wrap, but thank you for being here today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. I'm excited. Thank you. You're fun to talk to.
We'll put that one in the bank. Listeners, I always appreciate your feedback. If you think I'm fun to listen to, you can find my contact info on our website, belowtheline.biz. That's B-I-Z. You'll also find past episodes and links to all of our social media, so check it out. Carol, where next are we going to see your work?
Probably on The Color Purple. That's going to be coming out in 2023. The Color Purple Reimagined is a musical. It's going to be amazing. The music is amazing, and aesthetically, it's amazing. So look out for that in 2023.
Carol, that sounds fascinating. I hope you'll come back and talk about it.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
My shout outs are to the regular bunch. Thanks to Curtis Five for our music, John Wan for our logo, and all of our listeners, I appreciate you. One last note before I let you go. This is the last episode of Season 12. And even though we've been talking about the First Lady, we're releasing this episode on Father's Day. So I want to mark the occasion with one last shout out to my dad. As regular listeners may recall, my father was a 30-year Army veteran who simply loved going to the movies. COVID took him from us right before Christmas in 2020, and while it's been a long wait, next month he'll be interred at Arlington Cemetery with full military honors. I'm going to take this break between seasons to spend some time with family and friends. The podcast should be back with new episodes in late July. If you're new to the podcast, I hope you'll check out our back catalog. Whatever your taste, I bet we've discussed a show you like. Please rate us wherever you get your podcast and share us with your friends. Thanks again from Below the Line.